You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 625, Legacy of Vader, which is the second episode that we've done on the show now that's covering the Legacy of Vader comic series. This is following Kylo Ren shortly after, almost immediately after The Last Jedi. And it's been a great series, honestly. So I'm really excited to talk about it. There's been some good stuff that's happened here. And I know I've been trying to get to the show for a number of weeks now. And, as of this recording, issue number 11 just came out. And so that was kind of a banger of an issue, if you don't mind me saying so. It also ended on a pretty good cliffhanger. And I'll talk a little bit about that here in a little bit. But that series may or may not be winding down here. I don't know just yet. It's been difficult, honestly, to keep up with what exactly is going on with that series, because we were told originally that this would be an ongoing series, but that issue ends with to be concluded. And so I'm not sure if they're speaking about being concluded in regards to the first volume or just that particular, that particular part. Maybe there's going to bring another writer in at some point, but nonetheless, it's been a great series, and I'm really honestly looking forward to talking about it tonight. So let's see. Before I get started, I want to say thank you to all of our Patreon members and for all the support that you guys have shown us. I want to say thank you especially now to our now part of the tribe members. That's Dante, Mike B, Danny, Risk, Bayless, Daz Davies, Jackson, Alex, Sharkman Dan, Uncle Leon, Josh C, Jacob, Rita Reborn. I've got a Brad Feeling and Paisley Rosengren, and our Delusions of Grandeur members. Now this is Pod Racing, Steve, and Rob. If you're interested in Patreon, you can click this little link up here. I almost got it. I don't know. I haven't really practiced that, but you can click the QR code there, scan that QR code, head over to our cantinacast.com/Patreon. There is a ton of stuff in there and more stuff coming. We've got all kinds of exclusive stuff that's coming directly to our Patreon members. So I'm trying to do more in that space as well. I'm planning to do more in that space as well. So I don't know, maybe moving a little bit more towards Patreon versus social media, but time will tell on where that goes. But thank you guys so much for all the support as always. It really means a lot and certainly helps support the show. We've got a couple things coming up here. Lauren and I are still discussing when we can do the Master of Evil breakdown. I just texted her just a minute ago and she texted back already. I've got some kittens that are having some health problems right now, so I may not be able to get to show tomorrow, but we will definitely be coming back. And I've already reached out to Adam Christopher's publicist and see if there's any way we can get him to come back to the show. He came out and did a show with us a couple years ago when Shadow of the Sith was out. And so it'd be great to bring him back on. Wonderful gentleman. So look for all that coming soon. And then as I mentioned before, we are fastly approaching the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens. And I've got a number of shows that I've got scheduled and planned out already for celebrating The Force Awakens in a way that I didn't get to do because I wasn't really part of the show at that point. Certainly wasn't on air or in front of the camera at that time. So it's going to be fun to actually talk about this in kind of a different light and different perspective. So, okay, let's get into the breakdown because I do have I'm going to cover issues 3 through 6 on this. So a total of 4 issues. And there's, again, we covered the first 2 already in a previous episode. I may come back and do 7 through 12, or I may try to break that up into 2 pieces. We'll talk more about that a little bit later, but this is going to be 3 through 6, total of 4 issues. And before we get started, I do kind of want to just talk about, give a quick recap for anybody that maybe hasn't been following along or isn't sure exactly, where this series picks up at. So issues 1 and 2, here's a quick synopsis on what happened in issues 1 and 2. So with Snoke's death, Kylo Ren is now the supreme leader of the First Order. He's very upset with the fact that he doesn't feel free even after killing his past, as he tried to do in The Last Jedi. So he decides to kill the past and legacy of Darth Vader instead. He orders Hux to build him a throne. More on that here in just a little bit. And he leaves for Vader's castle on Mustafar. There he meets Vinay, one of Vader's most loyal servants, who offers Kylo Ren assistance in finding true power like his grandfather before him. Together, they travel to Tatooine for a short history lesson on all that Anakin Skywalker had to overcome as a boy, which ends with Kylo visiting Anakin's once former slave master, Gardula the Hutt. Kylo manages to overcome most of Gardula's forces as he enters into the fortress, except for one small little bulbous thing, which I'll show you here in a second. This little bulbous creature that is force sensitive, and it renders his force abilities useless. And that issue ends with Kylo Ren becoming a prisoner of Gardula the Hutt. And so it kind of ends there. And we pick up immediately there on issue 3. Of course, the writer is Charles Soule. I'll talk more at the very end here. He's just a great writer. I've really enjoyed everything he's pretty much done for Star Wars. And I've been starting to tip my toe into some of the other stuff that he's doing with Marvel and some of the independent labels that he's got. But great writer. The art on this one is Luke Ross, which he's done an excellent job as well. There's some really good panels and stuff here. So I'm going to switch over now to my second monitor here so you guys can kind of follow along. I've got a couple pictures. I can't show everything just because, this is we wouldn't be getting the exclusive stuff if I kept doing that. So I don't want to ruin anything here, at least that relationship. But let me flip over to this and we'll pick up here. And by the way, I just want to say quickly, thank you to Marvel Comics as always for sending out the issues ahead of time and allowing us to have these advanced reader copies. It really makes a difference for us to be able to kind of bring this content to you guys. So let's start with issue 3, which is called Ghosts of Tatooine. And so this issue opens up with Kylo Ren essentially being shackled and electrocuted over and over and over again. I mean, it's like 7 pages of him being constantly shocked and repeatedly being shocked by Gardula Hutt. And she's constantly telling him to obey. She's really just trying to break him down. Eventually, this becomes too much for that little force-sensitive creature who talks Gardula into giving him a break. And then during this break, he has his vision, which is kind of like more of a hallucination vision. He has a couple of these throughout the series already. He'll continue to have more of them. So it's basically him kind of reflecting on past events as things that are happening to him are triggered and making him want to, forcing him to remember some of this stuff. But you can see here on this next panel, he says like a flashback here where Gardula says, "You are nothing." She says that to Kylo Ren. And that, of course, triggers a memory of him during The Last Jedi when he's talking to Rey and telling her that she came from nothing. So that hallucination is completely broken because it's at one point Vader starts talking to him. And when he asks Vader for his guidance, Vader just responds back with, "Everything that made me magnificent, I did alone." And that loneliness becomes a common theme throughout this whole series, honestly. And it's really kind of at the core of what I think Charles Soule is trying to get to is that, at least he's trying to get Kylo Ren to understand that all of this, everything that he wants to do and everything that he wants to become is going to come as a result of his loneliness if Kylo Ren really is willing to allow himself to accept all that. So, but more on that thematically as we continue to move through all these different issues. So after that, he's immediately tortured all over again, but he manages to use the sheer will of refusing to obey along with the anger to break free. And we have this really explosive panel. And this screenshot doesn't really do it justice. It's some really great artwork here. But he eventually just breaks the chains that he's in, very Sith-like, very, Sith code kind of thing. And not only does he break that, but he brings down the building, that prison that he's in, completely all around him. He just reduces it to absolute rubble. Let me see here. I've kind of jumped ahead here or didn't keep up, but here's the Vader flashback that he had here. And that's that little bulbous creature down there that you see. He's got his lightsaber in his hands and he is force sensitive. So very cool. I don't know if we'll see any more of this thing. It's, it's one of those creatures where like the Ysalamari from Heir to the Empire that once they're introduced, it's kind of a game changer. Same thing with like the Yuzon Vong. So we'll see if this thing ever pops up again in a future issue or future content, but very cool that they were able to kind of negate force abilities in that way. I should also mention the creatures from the High Republic as well. But here's Vader, one of the flashbacks that he's witnessing, and this is where he finally has enough and says, "I will not." And he breaks the chains and brings everything again all around him. He's just literally standing here with everything, all the rubble around him. You can't really see it. I cropped it out, but one of the droids that was kind of running this whole thing, this torturing, is down here as well. So I mean, it's completely obliterated at this point. And so he immediately decides then at that point that he's going to travel through the desert. It's a very interesting series of events that happens now because it's a lot of time passes here as he's moving, but there's some really cool shots here. Let me show you this next one here. He actually comes across one of these canyon crate dragons. And so this is not the big crate dragons that we saw like in The Mandalorian. This is the smaller ones. I think I would argue the more traditional ones that we've seen throughout Star Wars. And when we got to the crate dragons in The Mandalorian, it was like, holy bananas, those things were massively huge. So these are the smaller ones. We don't know how he fights this thing and wins, but clearly he does. It just shows him kind of walking and eventually standing up to this thing. But he eventually does because, as you can see here, and I'll show you a better picture in a second, that's actually him flying at these two guys here with the communication devices. And if you look in his hands, he's holding two of the horns that he's using now as daggers. And on top of that, he now has the mantle, like a hide of the crate dragon that he's using as body armor. So impressive. I mean, it's Kylo Ren, so you would expect that he would have found a way to kill that crate dragon. I mean, essentially with his bare hands. I mean, he didn't have anything that he went into that little cave with, but nonetheless, he does kill that crate dragon, and he uses the radio communicator that these two other guys have. You can kind of see them. You see him down here in the bottom right-hand corner. He's got the headphones on, and he decides that he's going to reach out to Hux and tells Hux to bring the Finalizer, which is his flagship, to Tatooine because he wants to fire upon Gardulla's mansion or Gardulla's fortress in 20 minutes. He walks over to the fortress. You can see it there. He's riding a dewback, which I don't know if they explain where he got that. It might have been those two travelers, honestly, but he's riding this dewback, rides it over back to the fortress. He goes into the fortress and comes out with his lightsaber. Now, I'm not sure what happens to Gardulla the Hutt. Either he went in there and killed her. Maybe he killed that little bulbous creature. I don't know how he got past that thing. Maybe there's sympathy there. It'd be great to understand what exactly happened there. But he just walks out with his lightsaber. And of course, he kills everybody in the front, kills everybody, I suppose, inside as well. But if he didn't kill Gardulla the Hutt, this is what happens as he's walking out. He walks out and the Finalizer takes that suborbital shot at the fortress and obliterates it. So if Gardulla managed to survive or anybody managed to survive in that fortress, they're long dead at this point because that thing is just, I mean, it's atomized at this point. So very cool that they did that. This issue then ends with Kylo Ren talking to Vinny, and he tells Vinny tells him that, via holo that, or I should say, Kylo tells Vinny that, hey, I learned that the only way I'm going to really truly gain power is through being alone. And that makes Vinny very happy. And so he tells Vader that his next step is to go to Varykino on Naboo, the very same spot that Anakin and Padme were married. So that's how issue 3 ends. Even though much of this issue was Kylo being there, being tortured through all of it, I felt like there were some really great moments, especially in those fast flashbacks that he was having, whether it was watching Vader, coming to that realization that he needed to be alone. There's, of course, a lot of suffering and pain that's probably going to come. I mean, if you're following along, you're getting the sense that he is kind of following the path of Vader. And as such, he is going to have to go through all of that. And so they're starting to hint at some of that. I mean, he was tortured throughout all of this. So there's the pain. We'll see some of the suffering that kind of happens here in a little bit. We also know that when that flashback moment in The Last Jedi, that was one of his greatest and lowest, in my opinion, times, right? Compounded by the fact that he had feelings for Rey, and that was part of his rejection. This plays out a little bit later in a future issue, so it's good that is kind of carrying through. Like it certainly makes sense for by the time we get to the Rise of Skywalker, why his relationship with her is the way it is, and how he feels about her is the way it is. Charles Soule is doing a really good job of kind of giving us some more context as to how all of this is kind of happening or why it happened the way it did. Thematically, the idea of being alone and suffering and all the pain that comes with all of that carries out through the rest of the series. It allows him to grow into Vader. For the most part in this series, more on that here as we continue to move on. I really enjoyed the crate dragon fight. I know I said this already, but I really kind of want to know what he did to beat that thing, since he didn't have anything but his bare hands at that time. There's also a moment here that was kind of funny at the very end when Hux is relishing. So when he tells Hux, hey, bring the finalizer and fire upon the fortress in 20 minutes, they actually are watching Kylo Ren head into the fortress. And there's a moment there where one of the guys is like, hey, what if he doesn't make it out? What should we hold fire? And you can see Hux's face, and it does a really good job here of the visuals, but you can see Hux's face almost relishing in the fact that he might not make it out. and that would be okay with Hux. So if Kylo Ren didn't make it out, then we got to just follow orders, and that means we may have to just blow up the supreme leader kind of thing. So, of course, none of that didn't happen, but you could see him almost praying that he wouldn't make it out in time. And this leads into some more confrontation between the two that we'll get to here in just a couple issues, or maybe even, in a couple issues. They have another good confrontation, which I do want to say that this series has done a good job of giving us more of that relationship between Hux and Kylo Ren as Supreme Leader, because we don't really get a lot of that. I mean, we go from The Last Jedi directly into The Rise of Skywalker. We know time has passed. Their relationship is very contentious by the time you get to The Rise of Skywalker, and arguably it was contentious throughout all three of the movies. But by that point, it's much worse. And there's moments like this and moments a little bit later where it starts to really kind of make sense and add up as to why they're the way they are. Okay, let's move on to issue number 4, which was called Assault on Naboo. Very pulpy title. And we open with a flashback of Kylo Ren 2 days prior. He's talking to Hux aboard the Finalizer, and he's asking Hux if they have the ability to destroy a planet. And we know they're going to Naboo. So already, as a reader, you're thinking, no way. Is he going to try to blow up Naboo or what? And he just Charles Soule just leaves it at this and makes you wonder all the way through the rest of this issue. So we then cut to where Naboo, where Vinny is giving Kylo Ren a lot of quick history lessons on the significance of Naboo, how important it was to Anakin, his future wife Padme, the powerful families that existed there, some of the figures that existed there, like the Santekas, and of course, Emperor Sheev Palpatine, which he's really loves the fact that he gets to bring up Palpatine's name while he's talking to him about this. He also tells Kylo that after the Empire fell, that Naboo was a totally different place because of the groups. Both the groups that were aligned with themselves with Palpatine after the Empire took over, and the groups that were against Palpatine, because that was in a contentious relationship. Once Palpatine fell, Naboo really kind of took a hit. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it war torn, but it was never the same again. And this kind of aligned with some of the content that we got, that little content that we've got in some of the books that have come out since the battle of what's the battle? I'm thinking of the big battle right before on Empire's End stuff. But anyways, it certainly aligns with all of that. He also so Vinny goes further, and then he goes into talking about how Anakin felt. How he was always trying to save his wife from dying, and ultimately it was his loss of love and not love itself that made him as powerful as he was. There's some great moments here, like I said, with the artwork as well. I don't have all of them. There's a couple of different ones on here, but you can see Anakin and Padme here during their wedding. He says, I don't know if I got the picture here. No, you can see him here also, where he's reminiscing about him choking her. He says he never let her go. But I want to read the quote from Vinay when he's talking about what Anakin went through in the loss of love. He says, "It was not lost. He was not afraid to grow attached, to allow one thing to become the center of his universe. There is strength in that. Focus. Vader's fear of losing Padme made it possible for him to do anything to keep her safe. It meant he did not limit himself as other Jedi did. There were no rules for Darth Vader," which is and you can kind of see him there while he's standing on this, pile of bones and dead bodies, where Vinny is talking to him about all this stuff. And this is kind of a light bulb moment for Kylo Ren in a lot of ways, even though it doesn't really necessarily manifest in this issue. It will a little bit later. But Vinny tells Kylo Ren, look, you need something like this in your life, right? You need something that's going to really empower you to remove your limits. And of course, at that moment, what does he do? He immediately thinks of Rey. He kind of flashes back to the throne room scene, because again, that was when he felt like he had a peer, somebody of that he loved and was, I don't know, the dyad in the forest, right? There was definitely a connection there. And so when he thinks about who's a person that I could love in that regard, Ray comes to mind immediately. So for the Raylos, this was a nice little bone to have been thrown to us, but certainly aligns again with everything else that we've learned up until here. They're then interrupted by these two wandering, locals there, and they go into this tale about the spirit of Darth Vader coming to Verkino and killing all the people that spoke of Padme. I don't remember this ever happening in the Darth Vader series. I think it might have been mentioned in one of the books, one of the Padme books, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, Vader did come back to Naboo. He did come to Verkino, and he was going around, at least by the tall tale that these guys are telling, was going around killing people, anybody that ever spoke of her name. So killing the past in somewhat the same way that Kylo Ren is trying to do here. They're then interrupted again by this gentleman here. And this guy here is he's the local landowner of Verkino now at this point. So it's kind of changed hands a couple times. You can see him and his guards. His name is Storg Varuna. Kylo, of course, kills this guy. He kills him and his men, and he has this epiphany that Vader came back to kill his past too, just like he did. He's doing, and to kind of hit that point home for no reason really. You can see him. He's fighting the guards here. He kills all of them. Kills Storg. And then just to kind of hit the point home, he's talking about how pathetic they are because they're so focused on lineage and, the past. And so what does he do? He decides to kill those two locals who were already walking off. He just cold-blooded just chokes them with the force, from a couple to, 100 feet away or whatever, and kills them. So it's good to know that Kylo Ren is, we know who he is by the time we get to The Rise of Skywalker and Ben Solo and him struggling with the light and the dark. We see some of that through this series, but there's definitely more moments in the first couple of 6 issues of him really leaning into the dark side more than the light at all. So yeah, still a little shocking to see him kill those people, but nonetheless, it was certainly, again, on point and on character for where he's at. And so this one ends with Kylo Ren, which I thought was really great. He suddenly, you can see up here, this is like one of the Naboo taverns up at the top. You got the Gungans down here at the bottom. But it ends with him saying that, look, I am your king. So he declares himself now the king of Naboo. And at this point, I was like, wow, this is really good stuff. Like the fact that he went to Naboo has inserted himself as their leader now, which is really, I want to see where this is going to go kind of thing. So again, it did a good job of filling in some of the blanks for Vader at times, especially for anyone who hasn't been following up and keeping up with that series that Charles Soule did. I think the highlight for sure was confirming that Vader used his loss of love as his loss of love from Padme to kind of become as strong and as powerful as he was, and he didn't let anything really get in the way of that, which allowed him to have his power kind of be limitless. The idea that he's declaring himself the king of Naboo, big surprise. Soule certainly teases us at the very beginning with the idea that, again, that Kylo Ren was going to blow the planet up, and instead he doesn't blow it up. He becomes the king of it. So you wonder, like, where the heck is this going to go? So, I mean, had he blown up Naboo, and if he really wanted to destroy the legacy of Vader, obliterating Naboo would definitely make a pretty rock solid move, given its history and significance. So that's how issue 4 ends. Let's roll into issue 5. This one is called Target Naboo. And so we pick up, as you figured, we pick up exactly where we left off here. We're on Naboo. He's now, we're actually on a city called Spinnaker here, and there is a full-on invasion. You can see the shuttles coming in. You've got the TIE fighters in there. I think later on you'll see he's got Star Destroyers and some other stuff. But, I mean, it's an absolute full-on invasion of Naboo by the First Order. There's some really good shots here. I'm not going to include all of them again, but there's some really good stuff where you can see them fighting and all that. But Hux is really questioning, like, hey, why are we spending our time attacking Naboo when we could be doing other more important missions? Like, oh, I don't know, we need some kind of a shipyard given the setbacks that we had at Starkiller and Crate. Hux says he's got a plan to take Corellia, which is great because that leads into the next issue as well. But other than that, I mean, Kylo is just he realizes that Kylo's kind of on this personal vendetta, and it's really not making a whole lot of sense. And a lot of what he does really doesn't make a lot of sense, but we kind of know that about him. So Kylo then he takes his forces, he scatters them all over Spinnaker and all over the city, and then he orders the First Order to obliterate the resistance with extreme prejudice. Right? If anybody tries to push back, anybody tries to stand up, he wants them squashed, killed immediately, no questions asked, kind of thing. Well, this is where I think this issue anyway, started to lose me just a little bit. Probably the only feedback I've had so far. We jump over to this character on the left hand side here. It's a character with a visor. He's got some blasters. It's Kylo Ren. It looks like Kylo Ren, but to the local people in Naboo, they don't know that. And he shows up and he starts killing his own people. Like Kylo Ren starts, I think I've got another one here where you can see where it says take cover. But you can see him. He's taken out all of the stormtroopers, and he even takes out an ATST, which we know he's fully capable. He doesn't pull out his lightsaber, but he's dressed almost as a resistance fighter or resistance hero, and he's going around killing his own forces. I was already scratching my head when this happened because I'm like, where the heck is this going? Why would he even be doing this? So after he defeats his own forces, he then holds a secret meeting with all the townsfolk. There's some more explosions. And he says, here he's talking about, he says, Kylo Ren will take everything you have. So he's trying to scare the locals into realizing that Kylo Ren is there, the First Order is there, they're going to take everything they want, they're going to kill us all. You have to stand up and you have to resist. And oh, by the way, follow me as your leader. I'm the one that can help you bring, because I know a lot about the First Order. And at some point, one of the villagers is like, how do you even know so much about the First Order? I don't know that he ever answers that question, but it's very clear that this person is somebody that doesn't live on Naboo and has a lot of history and understanding of how the First Order works. So there is a bit of suspension of disbelief here. But I'll talk more in a second here because you'll see where this goes. But throughout he calls them in, says all that to the people, and he gets them to become this resistance force. And so because they know how the First Order works, because of Kylo Ren, they're able to have really effective, warfare with the First Order. And there's a lot of different panels that show them taking down things. You can see what looks to be like a walker here, maybe an ATST, and then really look at this one very closely. It looks like more like an ATST, but they're able to take out, use really good tactics against them. They're kind of one step ahead of the First Order the entire time. So it's very odd. Again, as you're reading this, you're scratching your head going, why is he even doing all this? So, Hux is really upset. He's like, man, we're getting our butts kicked, dude. Where are you? And he calls over to Kylo Ren, and Kylo tells him, look, I'm really busy right now, but I need you to come up with a plan for Spinnaker if it's this bad. And so Hux's plan is like, well, why don't I bring the Dreadnought ship? Let me bring a Dreadnought ship. I'll obliterate the city, and that'll send a message to them. Kylo's like, yep, great plan. I got to go talk to you later. And so Hux shows up, and he's got the Dreadnought, which I can show you here. There we go. He brings the Dreadnought in. You can see it floating here. Brings it right over the planet. And while this is going on, while that time is happening, Kylo Ren has rallied those guys to cobble together, Frankenstein together this like force of ships. You can see it here. And if you look, some of them are interesting. They've got they're cobbled together with X-Wing parts and TIE fighter parts. And there's some N1 Naboo starfighters in here with, mixed. You got like a starfighter here with Imperial wings, but they put basically this kind of hodgepodge, eclectic group of series or ships together, and they attack this Dreadnought. And they're very effective about it, really, as well. I mean, they actually give them a hard time. And while all of this is going on, Vinny, who is watching all of this, finally comes out and he asks him, why are you going through all this? Why are you trying to kill your own people? And his response is, the people of this world need to evolve. They need a catalyst to move beyond what they have been. I am giving that to him. And Vinny responds back. Well, this is where it gets really good. This is the part where I thought did really well. But Vinny responds back, once again, your lineage runs true. Vader hated himself at first, too. That infuriates Kylo Ren, that he said that he hated himself, who then threatens to remove his head with the Force. And I think I may have got a picture here of that where right there, you can see it. He actually detaches his little jar head from his body and is threatening to kill him. and goes so far as to say, look, I don't even know, like, what good are you at this point? I don't even need you anymore. You said you were going to help me, and you could argue whether or not he's been successful or helpful in any way. But that's when Vinny kind of pleads for his life and says, look, there's a vault within your grandfather's fortress, which contains all the power that you could want, but only I can open that and get you to it. So, he's using that as a bargaining chip to kind of help him stay alive. Vinny also then tells him, look, you're wasting your power and you're wasting your time potentially trying to kill yourself when you need to be looking for an enemy that's worthy of your time, worthy of you tracking down and killing. And so Kylo Ren takes all this in. He likes the idea that there's somebody out there that he can chase other than himself. And he calls the dreadnought off. And so the dreadnought leaves. The villagers are super happy. They're all cheering because they think they've won. They've done enough to fight them off. You can see it here. It says, I don't believe it. They're retreating. We fought them off. And so the dreadnought takes off. The TIE fighters take off. Naboo, all the people in Spinnaker are happy. They're cheering. We did it. We did it. We did it. And they go down to where they have the secret meetings with Kylo Ren, who's there. And you can see them in the background. They're cheering. You were right. You were right about everything. Everything's super happy. And then Kylo Ren kills all of them. I mean, he just murders every single one of them, which is, again, kind of shocking and sad. But, this guy's really angry right now. So that's how this issue ends. Just him murdering all these people in cold blood. I wasn't the biggest fan of the issue. I totally understand what Charles Soule was trying to do here. I don't know that I just felt like there might have been other ways to do that. And honestly, in comic books, it's not uncommon for things to happen like this, where it feels like we're really stepping outside of, I'm going to call it canon, or outside of realism in some ways. And comics can get away with things like this. So if you're a fan of comics and you've read Marvel and DC and all this stuff, this is not something you've not seen before. Where you're just like, wow, this feels like it's out of left field in some ways. And for me, it kind of did, but it's easy enough to write off. But it does show that he is mimicking some of Vader's personality traits here. I don't know that it's ever been officially said, but I think Jonesy and I have always talked about this on the shows, where we always felt like there were times when Vader would, kill his own people, force choke people, kill his own men. And some of that was, yes, he wanted to keep them in line. He wanted to instill the fear. But I always got the sense that was him really enjoying it. Like, he hated his life so much and he was in so much pain. And that any opportunity that he had to just kill these minions that were screwing things up or not following orders or whatever else, it just felt like that was so easy for him to tap into the dark side and just kill them as, for fun, if you will. And so in some regards, I feel like maybe that's where he was going here. He was trying to mimic that. Kylo Ren was trying to kill off people that he felt were lesser of him. And of course they didn't, he didn't need these people anymore. Right. So it didn't make sense to keep them alive. But other than that, I think again, beyond that suspension of disbelief, this was really the only part that I didn't really care for. I guess the motive here was understood, but I didn't like the execution as much. It does do a good job of planting the seed for Corellia, which is going to be coming up here in this next issue. It also sets up a nemesis for Kylo Ren that we'll also get here in the next issue. It's kind of teased. It's the cliffhanger for it. And it's a good reminder that Kylo Ren really can be an a-hole whenever he wants to, right? And he continues to do that. Every time he tries to follow, anytime he leans into the dark side, he really, really leans into the dark side and does some really horrible things. So killing all those innocent people who are thinking them was pretty shocking to see. All right. Let's talk then about the last issue. Now this one didn't have a title. I called it The Conquest of Corellia because it was the first thing that came up to kind of set the location. But here's some really good panels too as well. And again, I don't have them all in here, but you can see this is the First Order. They've invaded Corellia again, which, if you're not familiar with Corellia, legendary known for creating ships, right? It's a big shipyard. We saw it in the Solo movie, but they need to go here because they need ships. They need to figure out a way to start mass producing ships because they don't have Starkiller Base anymore. So, they've got everything. They've got AT-ATs in there, AT-STs, or the guerrilla walkers. You can see those there, Star Destroyers. You've got of course, there is the Resistance here. So they've deployed their Y-Wings. You can see them up there, or dispatched their Y-Wings. You got shuttles. Great stuff. Great battle that's happening here. Very cool to see this kind of happening. Let's see if I got another picture. Oh, didn't mean to do that. I don't. This is the only one that I picked out. But what's really interesting, though, is Hux is leading this battle, right? So in the last issue, he said, I've got an idea about how we can get into Corellia and kind of take it over. And you get to see Hux. I mean, he's doing it impeccably. He's doing everything right. Everything is going in favor of the First Order. Legendary is a word. Thanks, Dale. Appreciate that. Sorry, I was going to throw that up there. But yeah, everything's going really well. You know, he's, you can almost see Hux trying to instill this sense of team amongst the First Order. You know, he's congratulating people. He's being super positive. It's a side of Hux that we don't really see, you know, from the movies anyways. And it made me wonder as I was reading this, what kind of a leader had he been had Kylo Ren not lived, right? If he had become the Supreme Leader, how would that have gone for the First Order? Would they have done things differently? Would they have been more successful? But tactically, it certainly shows his chops. You know, this certainly falls in line with his father's footsteps, who was in the Phasma book, and you know, Brundle Hux. You know, he's got a lot of history as well. But he was known as a good tactician, and certainly looks as though the apple didn't fall too far from the tree. So this is really good stuff. Like, I really enjoyed seeing Hux kind of in this leadership role and leading these guys to victory and taking over Corellia. So everything's going really well until Kylo Ren shows up. So Kylo Ren decides to just swoop in, and you can kind of see him here in his fighter, and he immediately takes command of the whole battle. He tells the First Order forces that he wants them to protect him as he makes an attack run on the command center. He does that. He takes it out. Let me see. I think I got a picture of here. You can see it there. Yeah. He's coming in. He's got these TIE fighters flanking him. I mean, he's losing TIE fighters left and right they're flanking him and trying to protect him, right? He doesn't really care. He's kind of almost got this like bloodlust look in his eyes, but eventually he does take the command center out. I mean, you can see him. He's even yelling. This is so different than what Hux was saying. He says, Kylo says, I said, keep them off me, you fools, right? Very, very different types of leadership styles here. But he does come in, swoops in. He is the Maverick, the Top Gun person. He gets all the glory because they do take out the command center. They do take Corellia, and then all the people are rallying for him. So similar with Vader, right? Vader had a lot of people that were always cheering his name, and they'd rally behind him, even though he'd turn around and kill him 2 seconds later sometimes. But you can see here they're cheering Kylo Ren, long live the Supreme Leader, Kylo Ren. What's really interesting too is they don't really make a big deal about this, but if you remember back in those first 2 issues that we did, one of the very first things that Kylo Ren tells Hux he wants him to do is one of his first orders as Supreme Leader is he tells Hux, go build me a throne. And so you can finally see the throne, which is right here. So he does it. And Kylo Ren actually tells him, hey, you did a good job with the throne, which was kind of nice that he did that. But it looks very much like a cross between Vader's castle and some of the Ralph McQuarrie artwork that was done for the pre-production stuff for Return of the Jedi. It looks like they blended some of that. And this isn't really the best picture. There's a couple different shots and different angles in the comic, but do love the idea. I love the aesthetic of the throne. It's certainly fitting of somebody who is Kylo Ren and of the Skywalker bloodline. So, we look over and there's a exchange now between Kylo Ren and Hux. So I think Kylo tells Hux, hey, I want to see you in my quarters kind of thing. And so he goes in there, and this is where Hux does a really good job of saying, look, I had everything control until you let us know. That's Leia. No, he says like, hey, look, everything was going really well. I had people doing things, you know, we were executing just well. We were, you know, whatever. And he tells Kylo Ren that, look, I have a hard time. Not only do I have to be mindful of what my enemy's doing, but you coming in like that, like Billy Badass, and doing what you did, that makes it even harder for me to do my job, because now I have to be worrying about my authority coming in, my leader coming in and doing all this. So he's got to battle that. And he's not in the wrong. I mean, he's in the absolute right. Kylo Ren does this and really changes. I mean, there was a loss of life. It didn't necessarily have to go that way, but what's he going to do? He's not going to argue that. And so does Kylo Ren really take this to heart? No, absolutely not. He actually tells him, look, are you trying to chastise me? Because it feels like you are. There's almost a threat behind it when he's talking to him about that. And so, again, great exchange. There's a lot of context here, a lot of the relationship you can see the feud happening, which is great, but they get kind of cut off at this point because Vinay has gone to a planet and is calling him. He calls Kylo Ren. Let me see if I've got Yeah, you can see. I just jumped to it, but the name of the planet is Lati, and so remember, he in the last issue he said, "Hey, you need somebody that's worthy of your a worthy enemy like yourself," and so he calls Lati. He goes to Lati here, calls Kylo Ren there. Kylo Ren shows up, and he tells him, "Look, there is a Jedi here. I know it's yet another Jedi that's survived Order 66, but he tells him there's one here on this planet, and that this Jedi." Was actually on Vader's radar, but it came in at the very tail end of Vader's, right before Vader died. And so he did do some research, and I think that I'll get to in the next issue, they get into this a little bit more. But the idea here is that there is a Jedi that's on here that he wants him to go out and find and kill this Jedi, similar to what Vader did, right? Because Vader was going out and he was hunting Jedi. And so again, this is Kylo Ren trying to live and walk a mile in the boots of somebody like Vader. And so this is where he goes. So he sends out Kylo Ren to go find this person. While this is all going on, he's, Vinay's talking about all the things that, talking about the battles that Vader had. Infila is right here. You can see him. That's the Jedi battle master that Vader fought. And you can see Vader doesn't have a lightsaber right now. He's using kind of one of those force pike things. So if you read the Charles Soule Darth Vader series, this is the same person that he ends up killing. We did a whole issue on this because it's a really great battle, great story. But this is where Vader gets his kyber crystal from. He gets it from the hilt of Enfila's lightsaber, and of course he bleeds that and that whole thing. And so, it's a great flashback here to kind of show as he's talking about what Vader went through. So eventually Kylo Ren makes his way kind of to this town. He's just letting the Force kind of guide him to find this Jedi that's out there. He walks into the tavern here, and he decides that he's going to ask the local people here about, what do you know? Give me the information. I know you guys are hiding a Jedi, similar to what we saw like in the Kenobi series. And when no one speaks up, he goes to the bartender and he's kind of really pushing the bartender, trying to get him to speak up. And when the bartender doesn't give him any information and basically tells him to go away kind of thing, Kylo Ren resorts to trying to rip the identity of the Jedi from his head. And we've seen him use this before, of course, but he leans into that. You can see here on the screen, he's yelling to tell me where this is at. Well, this finally gets the attention of the Jedi, who just happens to be, of course, in the tavern as well. That Jedi then uses the Force to force pull Kylo Ren's lightsaber off of his hilt and into his hand, which you can see right there. And this issue ends with this new character saying, "We need to talk," kind of thing. And so he's found the Jedi that's been hiding. Where this is going to go will lead into the next issue. So, and I just want to quickly say too that the way they broke this series up, again, I mentioned earlier at the very top of the show, there's 12 issues total. 1 through 6 is kind of part 1, and then 6 through 12 is part 2. I don't really understand the break point here. Maybe it's probably more than anything just because they want to put together a trade paperback and not have so many issues in it and make it, financially feasible to actually sell and market and all that. But anyways, this ends this first part 1 of the Kylo Ren series, and then again 6 through 12 is the next part. So as far as this issue goes, I enjoyed this issue much more than the last one. I especially loved, like I said, getting to see Hux and in action, knowing that he was in actuality a very competent and impressive leader. And it feels kind of weird saying that, honestly, but that was certainly some qualities that he had. And like I said, it does make you wonder what the First Order would have been like had he lived and Kylo Ren not become the supreme leader. But their exchange says everything about the relationship too, right? You're almost, in this issue, as you're reading it, you're almost forced to kind of take the side of Hux because it does, he was in the right. And that, again, I think that does recontextualize the relationship that they have in the sequel trilogy. It aligns with his actions when we see in The Rise of Skywalker, when he admits that he only wants to see Kylo Ren lose, that whole bit. You can see where this is just kind of starting to fester, and these are moments here that build up into that. And at this point, Vinay and Kylo Ren, they've done a lot to ensure that Kylo is following along the same path of his grandfather, which is something that he's always wanted. So the journey continues from here, and then ending with him hunting down this Jedi, confronting them, and we're going to find out very quickly here that there's always a bigger fish, to quote Qui-Gon. because that battle doesn't really go the way that Kylo Ren thinks it's going to go. So good stuff. So overall, I would say I've enjoyed the series so far. I mentioned earlier that issue 11 is already out, and so I'm woefully behind on this, but it's still pretty rock solid even beyond this. I think One Up versus CPU says this is where the series got really crazy, and that, I think he's referring to when Kylo Ren turned against his own people. But if anybody else has read this, it's in the chat tonight. Let me know what you guys think. I think overall, I've seen a lot of good stuff about this. I haven't seen any necessarily negative things outside of the normal people that we would expect. So it's been a good series. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoying Charles Soule and his writing. I mean, it's as good as you would expect from somebody like him, who's really contributed so much to Star Wars in the literature form. So it's great that we have him as a writer. It's, the idea of him following Vader's footsteps gets even more literal. No, not literal in the sense that he's walking in his shoes, but I mean, if you haven't seen some of the covers later on, and he's wearing Vader's helmet. And when I saw that cover, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's more symbolic. And no, he's actually going to wear the helmet. So a lot of stuff is really interesting in terms of like how much he goes through, what his journey is to become more like Vader. Whether or not that happens, well, you can probably guess given where we get to the Rise of Skywalker. But let's see. So I talked about the way this issue ends too, with the series ends with it being concluded. It's possible we could get Legacy of Vader 2026. That's not uncommon. Very similar to the Vader. I mean, that kind of ended. And then the next year we came out with the 2018 version or whatever year that was, right? So it's possible that it could still be Legacy of Vader 2. But again, this series was solicited as an ongoing series and not a one and done or a 12 and done kind of thing. So we'll see how it goes from here. But overall, it's been good. Highly recommend you guys read this. I'm really kind of just skimming over and giving you the high points for anybody that hasn't read it or doesn't want to read it. But it's definitely worth picking up, at least digitally. And if you have the Marvel Unlimited subscription, you can read up into issue number 7, I think, at this point. So one more than what we've covered here already. So I think they've got like a 3-month delay on those now. So issue number 8 should be coming out if it's not out already. Let's see. Dale says they did a lot of similar stuff with the Vader, but Vader had the whole rebellion against him. Kylo has nobody against him. He's just being evil. Yeah, that's true. He is just being a jerk, and it's certainly expected. I mean, he wants to be like Vader, and yet he hasn't been through any of the stuff that Vader's been. And they made this very, very clear. If you remember in that first issue, when Vinny's talking to him, and he says like, "Hey, I know you've probably been through a lot of stuff yourself, just like Vader did." And then we get to a flashback of Kylo Ren looking back on his life, and he's lived a charmed life. Like his life has been nothing like Vader. It even shows us like his parents being very supportive of him, and Chewbacca running with him, and Luke teaching him, and everybody's been there for him his entire time, and yet he is who he is. And so they're making it. It's a very Dale's very right. I mean, this he's being a jerk and he's being horrible just to be horrible when Vader truly went through a lot of stuff, both pain and suffering, to make him who he is. And so we'll see how this, I mean, it's all for a reason, right? It's all prescriptive, and we'll see again, by the time we get to issue probably 10 or 11, it really starts to kind of make sense and all the pieces come together about, oh, okay, here's where this is going. So I really don't want to ruin any of that. So, well, I think I'll end the show there. Again, I just want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in. I'll call out the people that made it to the live chat tonight. My Star Wars guys, One Up versus CPU, Reader Reborn, Alex made it, Dale made it, Ernie made it. Hey, Ernie, thanks for being here. And anybody else that I didn't talk or didn't speak up, my apologies, not intended. I really appreciate you jumping in and being part of the show tonight, and certainly for supporting the show in the way you guys do. So, again, next up, we're still working on the Master of Evil. Both Lauren and I come back and doing that, as well as trying to get Adam Christopher on the show to talk about that book and maybe potentially what else he's got coming up, which I think they might have already announced. I'm not sure. No, they haven't announced yet. Sorry, no spoilers, but they, we'll figure out. Maybe he'll let us in on what he's got coming up. And then through the rest of December here, we've got The Force Awakens. So looking forward to celebrating that. I was thinking about this too, I'm kind of just talking out loud now. we got the announcement that the 50th anniversary release of Star Wars, the original Star Wars, as it was originally cut, being restored to likely 4K. I don't know if they're going to do any other special versions of it. Maybe they do an IMAX. I don't know. But that is coming out in January of 2027 to mark the 50th anniversary of Star Wars. And I thought it'd be great to really put together kind of a show talking about all the different iterations of A New Hope and what all the changes have been, and talk about whether or not those changes were good, bad, or indifferent. And so it's in the backlog of things. I probably will hit that maybe towards the top of the year. And then I've also just been thinking about, too, we've got to start, I need to start thinking about the Skeleton Crew 1 year later show. So it's crazy to think. But we are definitely about midway through. About midway almost to Skeleton Crew this time last year. So we've got the 1 year show that we need to talk about. And so I'd like to bring some Patreon folks to come on to the show and talk about Skeleton Crew 1 year later, reflect on that and everything that show was for us, because it was really a good time. Like, it felt like Star Wars was back and everybody was much happier than they had been in a very long time. So would love to feel that vibe again. So. All right, I'm going to end the show there. And by the way, I have new credits. So I teased this out on the Patreon show, or on the Patreon page a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it was last week, I think. But I finally finished them. And so I say that I just put this together, and they just released another lo-fi video, and it's of the cantina. And I thought, oh boy, that seems kind of on the nose. Maybe I should do that instead. So nonetheless, I've got a Loth Cat, and if you know anything about me, you know I love Rebels, and so that's why the Loth Cat is there, because why not? So I'm going to run credits, and we'll see you guys here on the next episode.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.